Amid the tangled underbrush of a forgotten woodland, where moss clings moist and unyielding to ancient trunks, and shadows swirl thick with decay, there lies a sight both grotesque and haunting: a dog, its flank marred by a festering wound that seems less the work of fate than a manifestation of a bizarre nightmare. This injury, raw and swollen, throbs with a sinister life of its own, an open canvas smeared with crimson tissue and punctuated by writhing intruders. The dog's fur, once golden and glossy, is matted with darkened congealed blood and strange trails of slime, serving as a grotesque map of its suffering. Here, nature has taken an unforgiving turn, revealing a brutal secret that most would recoil from, yet cannot look away from: an infestation, not of fleas or ticks, but of snakes, tiny, fork-tongued invaders burrowing into living flesh, defiling the very essence of life and vitality. The scene is stark, a raw tableau that merges the boundaries between predator and prey, parasite and host. These aren't the sleek, ominous serpents that glide silently through night's embrace. No, these are minute, almost insectile serpents, their scales glistening eerily as they crawl, slither, and burrow in the disintegrating skin folds of the poor animal. Each writhing form is a chilling testament to survival in its most perverted guise, a perverse ecosystem where the small serpents have found fertile, albeit horrific, refuge. It is as if the dog's body has become a shadowy jungle under siege, where survival only takes on. Beneath the stark whiteness of the Arctic expanse, where the cold is merciless and survival is a daily battle, there lies a grim and unsettling spectacle: the sight of a polar bear, once a majestic symbol of the frozen wild, now trapped in the throes of a horrifying affliction. This bear's flesh is riddled with grotesque wounds, festering and crawling with countless writhing snakes. What might seem like a bizarre nightmare has become a real and chilling reality. The pale, snowy landscape contrasts sickeningly with the slithering infestation that consumes this creature's body, a living canvas of decay and relentless parasitism. These snakes are not the tropical serpents one might imagine. They are cold-adapted parasites exploiting the weakening state of the bear. Tiny yet relentless, they burrow into the soft tissue exposed by the bear's injuries, feasting on blood and dead cells alike. Their cold skin glistens in the sparse Arctic sunlight, appearing almost translucent as they slide in and out of the gaping wounds. The wounds themselves seem to pulse, swollen with infection, excreting foul-smelling fluids that attract even more of the invasive reptiles. Each snake is a microscopic terror, their movements mechanical yet sinister, weaving a tapestry of suffering over the bear's once proud form. This infestation is an unnatural phenomenon, a consequence of shifting climates and ecosystems in distress. As the Arctic warms, new species encroach upon the fragile habitats of native wildlife. The polar bear, already overwhelmed by habitat loss and dwindling in the shadowed crevices of a forgotten forest, where light barely filters through the tangled canopy, a harrowing spectacle reveals itself. One that defies the usual balance of nature. Here, a dog, once a vibrant creature of loyalty and life, lies caught in a sinister web of decay. Its body, torn open by relentless serpentine attackers, reveals a grotesque tableau of flesh and slither. The wounds, jagged and festering, serve as a ghastly testament to the terrifying reality of snake infestation. This is no ordinary injury. It is a slow, insidious engulfment by a dark underworld, where these cold-blooded intruders have become parasites tormenting the poor canine, turning its body into a breeding ground for their survival. This dog's skin, once smooth and warm, now hosts an eerie mosaic of wounds that pulse with life and rot simultaneously. Upon close inspection, one can observe snakes, tiny yet tenacious, writhing amid blood and tissue. They burrow beneath the surface, their movements slick and venomous, orchestrating a macabre dance of infiltration and domination. The infestation is both physical and psychological, as the dog's groans mingle with the soft hiss of scales sliding against raw flesh. Each bite, each constriction, furthers the slow internal decay, leaving behind a corridor of destruction, seasons of swelling, infection, and the creeping death that snakes bring in their wake. There is no escape from this creeping infestation. The serpents exploit every moist, vulnerable crevice, turning the dog's very life force into their nutrient pool. Snakes, in this context, are not mere predators. They transform into invasive agents of decay, altering the biological landscape of their host. They don't simply draw blood, but disturb in the vast, sun-scorched savanna, Where life often teeters on the edge of brutal reality, there exists a grotesque spectacle that challenges the very instincts of survival. Picture a massive buffalo, its mighty figure lumbering through the dusty plain. But stop. Observe closely, and horror unravels. A honeycomb of wounds festers across its flank, holes and cavities, gnawing at its flesh like a ghastly living puzzle. These aren't mere sores. They are gruesome pits where life and death court's brutal dance, carved out by relentless parasites that have turned this noble beast into a moving hive of decay and disease. The buffalo's skin, once tough as leather, is now a ravaged battleground. The honeycomb wound is a sinister labyrinth of raw, bleeding flesh where parasites thrive amid the moist, bloody crevices. These tiny, sinister invaders, maggots burrowing deep into muscle tissue, botfly larvae anchoring themselves under the skin, feed voraciously on the buffalo's flesh, secreting enzymes that liquefy tissue to ease their feast. The air around the wound buzzes in the vast, breezy plains where the shadows stretch long, and the grass whispers secrets. A lone bison lumbers, a grotesque testament to an unseen torment. Its broad frame bears a hideous wound, dark and swollen, festering with a sinister hive, a wasp nest, tightly knit into the flesh, as if nature itself had turned sick and twisted. This is not merely an injury, but a living, breathing horror show, a rancid, buzzing colony of wasps carving their domain into the giant beast's flesh, their yellow and black bodies darting in and out of the pulsing cavity. The sight alone turns stomachs, as raw skin peels away, revealing glistening tissue beneath, infested with frantic movement. The story of wasp infestation on this bison is a macabre dance of survival and exploitation. Wasps, normally outside players on the rangeland stage, here become grim parasites. They do not simply cohabit, they invade, using the bison's injury as a fertile nursery, a grotesque cradle where larvae mature amid the beast's flesh and blood. Their stingers, sharp as needles, inject venom into the wound, slowing the animal's healing, keeping life and decay in a vicious stalemate. With every sting, the bison's pain twists deeper, its massive body a battlefield of biological warfare. Flies buzz, attracted by the sweet, sour scent of decay, adding their own corrosive contributions, turning the wound into an appalling smorgasbord of rot and life. Science applies its cold, impersonal lens to the scene. The wasps are opportunists, exploiting a weakness, an injury to an apex grazer, illustrating nature's indifference to suffering. This wound is a grim example of parasitism at its rawest, a brutal survival strategy stripped of sentiment. In the stark expanse of the wild, where life and death dance on a razor's edge, a solitary figure appears, a white lion, regal and rare, yet here blemished in a way that twists the usual majesty into something haunting. This is no ordinary sighting. The lion's body is marred by a horrific wound, a festering crater alive with the frenzy of countless insects. A shock to the senses, this wound pulsates with the dreadful choreography of nature's less flattering players. Carrion beetles, maggots, and flies, each nibbling, laying eggs, and thriving on the decay of flesh, turning a noble creature into a macabre tableau of infestation. The sheer grotesqueness of this scene demands attention. The white lion, a ghostly specter against the sun-baked landscape, is suffering under an onslaught not of claws or teeth, but of tiny, relentless ravagers. The wound is a crater of pus and rot, edges ragged and swollen, with the skin peeling back like the pages of a nightmarish book. Flies buzz incessantly, their wings creating a maddening hum as they dart to and from the festering site. Beneath them, maggots writhe in the wet, warm bed of dead tissue, their pale bodies slick and glistening, consuming the lion's flesh inch by inch. Beetles scuttle across the wound, their hard shells clicking on exposed bone, eager to feast on every morsel left behind. Insects are nature's decomposers, a brutal mechanism for recycling life in the wild, but watching their work on a living creature is a grotesque contradiction that assaults the mind and gut alike. The infestation begins when the lion's skin is broken, perhaps by a territorial fight or an infection that went unnoticed. Flies lay eggs in the open wound, And soon, larvae hatch and burrow deeper, feeding on the necrotic tissue. And sometimes, tragically, on living flesh too. This parasitic feast causes relentless pain, rotting muscles and tendons, and a slow, dreadful erosion of the lion's vitality. The swelling is a cauldron of infection, its fetid smell carried by the dry wind.